Hi there and welcome to Wine Searcher. Today's International Sauvignon Blanc Day, so I couldn't let that pass, obviously. So I've got a bottle here to try of a classic French Sauvignon Blanc, Chateau de Rochemorin. So Rochemorin is a chateau in Pessac-Leognan, in the Grave part of Bordeaux. So we're about 3 miles south of Bordeaux in a commune called Martillac, where there are a lot of the top chateaux of that region. This is a wine that is 100% Sauvignon Blanc. Many of the wines from Pessac-Leognan, many of the classic wines will have a reasonable percentage of Semillon in them as well, which adds a little weight and richness, but you can make 100% Sauvignon Blanc. The chateau also produces a classic Bordeaux red as well. This is a chateau with a long history. It was first the vineyards were first planted there in the 1520s when somebody called Jean de Hamelin came to Bordeaux. He'd come as a legislator and bought a property there. He bought the manor at a place called Beaubois and proceeded to cut down the bois, the forest, and plant his vineyard. The estate's been through a number of owners, including at one stage the famous philosopher, the Baron de Montesquieu. More concerningly, at one stage, just after the First World War, it was bought by a company that who were involved in planting and logging fir trees. So it was lucky to survive as a vineyard at all. But in 1973, the estate was bought by one of the sort of leading exponents of Pessac-Leognan. In fact, Pessac-Leognan hadn't been created in 1973 as a region. Somebody called André Lurton, and Lurton was, quite instrumental in creating Pessac-Leognan as a separate identity for a region within the Grave. And he had a number of properties. Had Chateau Bonnet in Entre-deux-Mers, and La Louvrière and Cohans-Lurton in Pessac-Leognan. Unfortunately, actually, 2015 was the year Lurton passed, but the estates are still in his family's ownership. And he put a lot of investment into rebuilding the winery and sorting out the vineyards, and has, with all his properties, made sure that they are some of the some really good examples of Pessac-Leognan's wines. So this particular wine, I thought it'd be interesting to look at it because it's a wine that's made slightly differently to a New World Sauvignon, in that it ferments in barrel and it then ages in barrique for 10 months, with about 35% of that being new oak, and with constant lees stirring there. I suppose the other important part in terms of its style is the fact that the wine has its malolactic conversion blocked, so that it keeps its sharp malic acid and doesn't have any extraneous flavours that will overlay the fruit aromas. So to taste the wine, looking at it, really it's quite a sort of a pale greenish colour, maybe slightly lemony yellow, but there's very little depth of colour. It's not water white by any means, but yes, greenish hints. Smelling it, it's strange. The wine is quite pungent, but the aromas aren't intense. What do I mean by that? There are classic Sauvignon aromas, things like asparagus, cut grass, gooseberry, all those are in there, but they're sort of overlaid with a creaminess that comes from the lees aging and the lees stirring, that just tones that down just a little. It's not as pungent as if this was a Marlborough Sauvignon. Tasting it, instantly apparent is a really crisp green apple type acidity. There's lemoniness as well, but then you've got all those sort of very typical pungent Sauvignon flavours again, the sort of the cut grass, the asparagus, but there's a real underlying sort of peachiness, a white peach, delicate white peach, and over the top of that maybe a sort of a slightly riper, more juicy nectarine note. There are plenty of flavours in there. There's not obvious oak, but you can perhaps feel a slight toastiness on the finish. But more important is the sort of the creaminess and the richness, and so there's a medium-bodied wine. It's been given a little bit of weight by the lees there. The alcohol's in balance. The crispness leaves the finish mouth-watering. The flavours last for a long time. Recommended pairings for this very classic sort of seafood, white fish, white meat as well. And actually, as a style, you generally don't think of aging Sauvignon Blanc, but the producers suggest that this, as a 2019, is just starting to drink nicely now. And their suggestion is that this would age for another 10 years at least, possibly more. I'm not sure it would last that long in my cellar because I'm enjoying drinking it now. But wherever you are, happy Sauvignon Blanc Day, everybody. Thank you very much. Bye now.